The first astronauts to walk on the moon since the 1970s will do so wearing sleek new spacesuits. Axiom Space, the private company NASA hired to design moonwalk suits for the Artemis 3 mission, unveiled its prototype on Wednesday at NASA's Space Center, Houston. The modern suits, which are called Axiom Extravehicular Mobility Units, or AX-EMUs, built on work that NASA staffers have already been doing to develop advanced spacesuit designs. They're tailored to offer the astronauts more flexibility and mobility when they set foot on the lunar South Pole, which is scheduled to take place as soon as 2025. Designed to fit 90% of men and women in the United States, the new suits will also help NASA reach its goal of landing the first woman on the moon during Artemis 3. At the unveiling event this week, Axiom Space engineer Jim Stein modeled the suit for students and members of the media. Using a staff for balance, Stein did squats and lateral lunges on stage to show off the suit's maneuverability. Russell Ralston, Deputy Program Manager of Extravehicular Activity at Axiom Space, pointed out various elements of the suit's design, from the headlights attached to the bubble-shaped helmet to the backpack that contains the portable life support system. He explained how astronauts will get into the suit via a hinged hatch on its backside. You would put your feet in, put your arms in, and then kind of shimmy down into the suit, Ralston said at the event. And then we would close the hatch. Unlike the spacesuit redesigns of private companies, like Elon Musk's SpaceX, Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic, and Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, the Artemis 3 spacesuit is not meant to be worn solely within a spacecraft, but on the surface of the moon too, specifically the never-before-visited lunar South Pole. Created in collaboration with Axiom Space, it has an outer cover in black for a bit of edge, with cool splashes of navy and orange at the knees, shoulders, and ankles, and a deep V overlay at the chest, for victory or vroom. There's also a little American flag on one shoulder. The effect is less Michelin Man and more Hulk meets Star Trek. At least that's the look of the current version, which will be worn by astronauts on the ground and during training. When astronauts step onto the moon in 2025, the dark cover layer will be swapped for a white insulation layer for thermal protection. Axiom is also using the cover layer to protect the company's innovations from competitors. Still, the basic silhouette with architectural joints at the elbows, a big backpack at the rear for life support systems, a humped torso that connects to the helmet, and arms that curve away from the body, as if they are holding a giant beach ball, will remain the same. As will the fact that the suit is essentially gender non-binary and created with a variety of adjustable parts to fit all sizes of bodies and allow for increased flexibility. For that, however, and that is a big deal, the total effect is still very much within the recognizable spacesuit tradition, at least to the untrained eye. That desire for scenery stems, in part, from the fact that NASA is now hiring private companies for work on various projects. Those commercial service providers are not locked into exclusive contracts with NASA and can make deals with other customers to sell their products and services. In this way, the space agency benefits from faster, cheaper innovations than it could develop itself, while fostering a growing space economy, says Laura Kearney, manager of NASA's Extravehicular Activity and Human Surface Mobility Program. With the Artemis program, NASA wants to put humans back on the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. The space agency hopes to establish the first long-term presence on the moon and using knowledge gleaned from those efforts to send the first humans to Mars. Artemis 1 successfully launched the uncrewed Orion spacecraft into orbit around the moon in November, after several delays. Artemis 2, which is scheduled for 2024, aims to fly 4 astronauts around the moon. The last time humans set foot on the moon was more than 50 years ago, during the Apollo 17 mission in December 1972. And the last time NASA designed new spacesuits was roughly 4 decades ago, for astronauts to wear on the Space Shuttle. Today, those suits are the ones in use on the International Space Station. In 2019, NASA unveiled its prototype for a new spacesuit called the Exploration Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or X-EMU. But 2 years later, NASA's Inspector General determined that the suits would not be ready until at least April 2025, and the agency decided to turn to private aerospace industry for help. Last June, NASA announced it had chosen Axiom and Collins Aerospace, the only 2 companies to submit bids, to develop new spacesuits to be worn on the moon and on the ISS. Axiom won the $228.5 million contract in September to build the new moon suits. A few months later, Collins Aerospace nabbed the $97.2 million contract to configure new spacesuits for spacewalks outside the ISS. It's not only a big deal just because of its cost or its technical specifications, which are extreme. Nicholas de Monchaux, the head of architecture at MIT and the author of Spacesuit Fashioning Apollo, described it as really less a piece of clothing than a very small building or a very small spacecraft. It is because, as Mr. de Monchaux said, the spacesuit is the costume for the drama we project into space, the way we put ourselves into the heavens. Any small change to the way it looks has potentially big repercussions, not just for the astronauts who wear it, but in the popular imagination. Capture that and you capture public support, which, when you are a governing agency embarking on a very expensive mission, is no small thing. It's not a coincidence that along with the Axiom engineers, seamstresses and technology specialists, Esther Marquis, the costume designer for the Apple TV Plus series For All Mankind, which imagines an alternative narrative for America's first moon colonies, was also involved in creating the new suit. In working with Miss Marquis, Axiom is following in the footsteps of Mr. Musk, who turned to Jose Fernandez, a costume designer who worked on Batman v Superman and the Fantastic Four for the SpaceX outfits. For most viewers, the suit is the human point of connection to the unknown, the one familiar item in a foreign world of technology and science. We may not understand the language of astronauts or even how they live in a zero-gravity environment, but everyone wears clothes. Sometimes technology feeds our imagination, but oftentimes our imagination actually shapes our technology. Indeed, Mr. de Monchaux said, the first spacesuit, the one that appeared on the cover of Life magazine on January 6, 1958, silvery, gleaming, evocative of frontiers beyond Earth, as the cover lines read, was silver not because of any specific technical reason, but because the company that made them understood that if they were the color of starlight rather than the dull khaki of previous flight suits, they would appeal to the watching public. They would play into popular preconceptions of what a spacesuit should look like. It was later, once astronauts began embarking on spacewalks, that spacesuits were remade in white because it turned out that silver reflected the sun and ran the risk of dazzling the astronauts. Now they come, at least for the moment, in black. One small step for man, one big step for space style. The redesign may be a surprise to lunar aficionados, but fashionistas would understand. There's a reason fashion has long reflected a fascination with space travel. From the balloon sleeves of the 18th century France, a reference to the hot air balloons that allowed man's first forays into the air, through the sci-fi styles of Paco Rabanne and André Courreges. It was only a few weeks ago that Ib Kamara's off-white ready-to-wear show was set in an imaginary lunar landscape and inspired by the question, what would you wear in outer space if you were a boy who liked to rap and was cool enough? His collection provided one answer. This week, NASA and Axiom offered another. What do you think about the new spacesuit design? Let us know in the comments down below, and remember to like, comment and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. And as always, hit that notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos.